Hello everyone, my name is Sarafi and I'm happy to meet you all. And today I am a little behind on new cards because, well, I got unlucky. I've already gone halfway through the new box and I haven't gotten much of anything yet, so I still can't build Ancient Gears, I still can't build Fluffle or Unchained or anything else right now. So instead, while I get a little bit more gems, let's go ahead and talk about something else, which is the banning of new cards and what I think it means for the game of Duel Links moving forward. So, in case you guys didn't realize, there was a curious limit in the new box, which is the Fright for Patchwork being limited to 3. Now, Konami has released other cards at limit 3 before, like, for example, Mind Control and Tech Genius Limiter Removal. Now, you might say, okay, well, Fright for Patchwork limited to 3 specifically so that Fright Furs can't play Crackdown with their new skill. Sure, possibly. But here's the thing, right? Fright Furs can still play Crackdown with the new skill. They just don't have to play Patchwork. So I actually don't think that Patchwork has been limited to 3 to conflict with limit 3 traps. I genuinely don't. I think that Fluffles don't really need limit 3 traps. They probably wouldn't even play them if they could because their deck is a fusion deck. It requires a lot of cards in the hand, and it requires a lot of cards that are monsters and spells. So I feel like back row is not common in a lot of fusion decks, except for decks like Neos Fusion, where you can just fuse from the deck and you don't have to worry about so much. So instead, I want to talk about what I do think this card has been limited to 3 on, and it is another card that was limited to 3 that a lot of people don't talk about, which is Fusion Deployment. So Fusion Deployment, when it was released, was also limit 3. Now, a lot of people said that Fusion Deployment was limited to 3 because of Eternal Bond. I heavily disagree with this. First of all, Neos and Yubel are not that powerful. Yes, you could potentially use Fusion Deployment to get your Neos on the field and then use your skill to draw Super Polymerization. But that's not that powerful of an ability to begin with. If it was, they wouldn't have given us the ability to draw Super Polymerization with Neos already. And it's not like you can't play Summoner's Arts and draw Neos already. So, like, the lack of access to Fusion Deployment in Neos has never been a problem, and even if it really was, people would just cut Kluger to play Fusion Deployment, and they don't, because it's not that good. Instead, I think this is a proactive change. So we have Fusion Deployment limited to 3, and we have now Fright for Patchwork limited to 3. And these cards are very popular in a deck called Branded. Branded has not been released in Duel Links yet, but it is very popular. It is a powerful deck in the TCG and in the OCG and in Master Duel. And Branded uses a lot of cards that support a generic fusion strategy. Their core is quite large, but in a 40-card deck, you do have options for other tech cards and access to wider and wider options. And Fusion Deployment and Fright for Patchwork both see play in Branded because of how sandboxy and generic the Fusion package in Branded really is. So, Fusion Deployment, I think, has been limited to 3 because, A, they are going to release Branded soon. I think that they are probably, because they limited Fusion Deployment immediately, I believe they were planning to release Branded within 1 year of Fusion Deployment being released. Fusion Deployment was released at the end of March 2024. So I believe before March 2025, we will see Branded introduced to the game. Second, I believe that Fusion Deployment was limited to 3 because they plan to put Fallen of Albz to 3. So Fallen of Albz is the main fusion material card in Branded, and it's very similar to a card like Elemental Hero Avian, where you use it for a whole bunch of different cards, and Fallen of Albz isn't really the point of the deck. It is more so the card that gets fused away to get access to the real ace monsters of the deck. In fact, a lot of times, Branded players in Master Duel will simply play the card from the deck with Branded Fusion. They might play Branded in red to return it to the hand and fuse it away, but a lot of times, Branded players don't even summon Fallen of Albz to begin with. So in most instances, Fallen of Albz is basically a vanilla, but it's not a vanilla, okay? So Fallen of Albz, which is in Branded, says this. if this card is normal or special summoned, except during the damage step, you can discard one card, then fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters on either field as fusion material, including this card, but you cannot use other monsters you control as fusion material. So, Fallen of Albz is essentially super polymerization by itself. It's if super polymerization was also a fusion material. And it's important to note, Duel Links has had super polymerization in the game for a while. Super polymerization is limited to 1, but there have been skills that could draw it, and it's mostly seen play in heroes, and the reason that it sees play in heroes primarily is because it's just spell speed 4 removal. That's it. The difference is, in Branded, the cards that you're summoning are actually really powerful. Like, a lot of times when you play against heroes and they play super polymerization on you, they summon elemental hero, I don't even remember its name. The dark one that has 100 attack points for each hero in the graveyard. Like they take Neos and change it into another Neos, basically. So it's just removal, but that's not the case with Branded. So Fallen of Albz can be combined with any Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link monster to summon Mirror Jade the Iceblade Dragon, which is a level 8 Wyrm with 3,000 attack and 2,500 defense. Once per turn, as a quick effect, you can summon one fusion monster that mentions Fallen of Albz as material from your extra deck to the graveyard to banish one monster on the field. But this effect cannot be used again the next turn. So, Mirror Jade, the Iceblade Dragon, can non-targeted banish, as a quick effect, one monster on the field. Really, really good. And then it also has, if this fusion summon card in its owner's control leaves the field by your opponent's card effect or battle, you can activate this effect and destroy all monsters your opponent controls during the end phase of this turn. So that's actually really, really dangerous. It's not quite as bad as Elemental Hero Absolute Zero, because Absolute Zero can trigger if it's blinked away or something like that. But that's a very, very powerful form of removal. So being able to summon Fallen of Albz very easily and get Mirror Jade the Iceblade Dragon out, not only do you get this powerful monster, but you've also removed one of your opponent Xyz, Fusion, Synchro, or Link monsters from the field without targeting it, without destroying it. It's really, really strong. So I'm thinking that Branded is coming, and that Fallen of Albz is going to be limited to 3 so that it will conflict with Fusion deployment. I also think that Fright for Patchwork was limited to 3 to discourage people from playing Fright for Patchwork in Branded, because there's another card that people like to see in Branded with Fright for Patchwork, and that is Guardian Chimera. Guardian Chimera is a dark beast with 3,300 attack and 3,300 defense, and it requires 3 monsters with different names, so you can use Edge Imp Chain to fusion summon it. It says must first be fusion summoned using only fusion materials from your hand and your field with at least 1 monster from each. So this is a card that explicitly prevents you from using super polymerization effects to make it. If this card is fusion summoned by a spell card or effect, like polymerization, you can draw cards equal to the number of cards used as material from the hand, and if you do, destroy cards your opponent controls equal to the number of cards used as material from the field, without targeting. It's cards, not monsters. So this is a really, really strong effect. And it also has another effect, which is, while polymerization is in your graveyard, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. Because it explicitly references polymerization, a lot of people play Fright for Patchwork to get polymerization in their hand, and also get a material with the Edge Imp Chain to then immediately make Guardian Chimera. And this is very popular in Branded, because Branded Fusion locks you into just fusion summoning for the rest of the turn, and Guardian Chimera is like a great, solid removal card for those decks. So, now it's true that, Branded will probably want to play Guardian Chimera, but it's also true that a lot of other decks could use Fright for Patchwork to make Guardian Chimera, not just Branded. So I'm guessing that probably Guardian Chimera is also going to be limited to 3, just so that if you want to play it with Fright for Patchwork, you're only going to be able to do it one time. And then only in decks that aren't Branded. Which is interesting. And I definitely think that Fluffle in particular would play Guardian Chimera, and then 2 Fright for Patchworks. Anyway, so that's what I'm thinking about these limit 3s that have been happening this year that don't really line up with the other limit 3s that we've seen. I'm thinking that Branded and other powerful fusion decks are coming to the game, and that these cards are being introduced, but they're being cut off so that you can't use them necessarily right yet. They definitely are adding fusion deployment to the game for a reason. I do think that eventually they will probably put fusion deployment to 2, and then it'll let you play it with branded, but they're not going to do that right away. They're just going to maybe test how branded feels without fusion deployment, and then they'll have the option to maybe they put fusion deployment to 2 and they put branded fusion to 2, and then you're just like, okay, well, do I want to play 2 copies of branded fusion, or do I want to play maybe 1 copy of branded fusion and 1 copy of fusion deployment? Because fusion deployment, if it summons Fallen of Albz, is basically branded fusion, right? Except you have to discard a card. I'm looking forward to this. I think this is going to be great. My name is Serafi, and I was thrilled to have all of you with me.